Hello, wrestling fans. Welcome back to the Wrestling Wrap Up. I, of course, as always, am your host, the Megastar Austin Savage. This is episode 55 of the show. I did a test run of this week's show, and apparently it is going to take me more than one video. Let me get comfortable here to do all the topics I want to talk about. I want to talk about this issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated I just picked up on Friday at my local grocery store. I want to do a book review, I want to do a DVD review, and I want to discuss tonight's Turning Point Impact Wrestling pay-per-view. I picked up this magazine because it has a four-way face-off. Raw versus SmackDown versus TNA versus ROH. It's an annual thing that they do. They take one talent from each roster and put them in a match. My hair's all messed up, sorry about that. Match number one. John Cena versus Mark Henry versus Kurt Angle versus Davey Richards. This match represents the world champions as of the writing of this publication. As we all know, Bobby Roode is the current TNA world champion. So I'm not going to make that change. The person that wrote this article, his name is Dan Murphy. And after reading through these 16 matches, you're either a WWE mark, not very smart, or you're a favoritist. One of the two. One of the three, excuse me. Anyways, you picked John Cena. I have no idea why you would pick John Cena over a guy like Davey Richards. And the criteria you guys used. What the person has going for them. The biggest knock against them. Their ring presence. Their oratory skills, meaning their promo skills. And their ranking in the PWI 500 of this year. You guys picked John Cena. Okay. Other than Mark Henry, John Cena has the worst ring presence. Has no fucking wrestling skills whatsoever. He's a fucking entertainer. So, okay, you take him out. You got Mark Henry, who's a giant 400-pound blob. It took him 15 years to win the world title. Should have been world champion the day after he started, based on his size. So you have Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, and you have Davey Richards, the American Wolf, the ROH World Champion. Tough match, I give the edge to Davey Richards. Because he is the best wrestler in the world. It's not the name of a pay-per-view. It's not a gimmick. Davey Richards is the best in the world. Moving on. Alberto Del Rio versus Randy Orton versus Bobby Roode versus Jay Lethal. Mr. Murphy, you picked Randy Orton. I agree with this one. Jay Lethal's a hell of a talent. He's just not up to that caliber yet. CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes versus Crimson versus Tommaso Ciampa of ROH. Whereas Tommaso Ciampa is the only undefeated man in ROH right now. Crimson is also undefeated, but I mean, who's he beat, really? Anyways, moving on. Cody Rhodes isn't quite there. Murphy, you picked CM Punk. I concur with this pick. Dolph Ziggler versus Wade Barrett versus Gunner versus diehard Eddie Edwards, a former ROH World Champion and the only man in ROH history to be a Triple Crown champion. They've been around just as long as TNA Wrestling or Impact Wrestling now. Mr. Murphy, you picked Eddie Edwards. For once, we agree. I mean, we've agreed in the past, but Eddie Edwards can beat Dolph Ziggler. Eddie Edwards could beat Wade Barrett. Eddie Edwards, no doubt, could beat Gunner, based on skill level alone. Mike Scales used some work. He was ranked number 9 in the PWI 500. Of these 4 guys, he's ranked the highest. So good choice there. For some reason, you booked Dolph Ziggler twice. I don't know why. Not like the WWE doesn't have a ton of talent, you know. Dolph Ziggler versus Daniel Bryan versus Sting versus Roderick Strong. You picked Sting. Okay. Sting is a 50-year-old man. Roderick Strong is in his 20s. Daniel Bryan, I believe, is still in his 20s or his early 30s. Dolph Ziggler is in his 20s. And you picked Sting. So either you're an old school fan and love the Stinger, you were a little Stinger when you were a kid, or you don't know talent. Because Roderick Strong is the most talented guy in this set. Daniel Bryan is hell of a talent, former ROH World Champion. But to me, Roderick Strong is the it guy right now in terms of these four. So I disagree with you on this pick. You pick Sting. I think Roderick Strong would run roughshod over these three individuals. Moving on. John Morrison versus Sheamus versus Mr. Anderson versus Kenny King. You pick Sheamus. Fine. I think Kenny King and Morrison would have a hell of a battle, and either one of those two would win. Evan Bourne versus Ezekiel Jackson versus Jeff Jarrett versus Michael Elgin. You pick Jeff Jarrett. Personally, I think Michael Elgin would be the one that takes this because he's stronger and faster than Jarrett. I think he would just run right over Evan Bourne based on his size, and Ezekiel Jackson would give him the toughest test. But Dan Murphy, I don't know if you don't watch ROH, you just pick names out of a hat, I'm not sure. Michael Elgin's gimmick is he's unbreakable. I have no doubt he could go through Ezekiel Jackson. Therefore, my pick would be Michael Elgin. R-Truth versus Christian versus Rob Van Dam versus Adam Cole. You picked RVD. The youngest guy in this group is Adam Cole. He's also the least experienced. Therefore, I feel that you made the right choice with Rob Van Dam because he's the most versatile of the four. Kofi Kingston versus Ted DiBiase versus Bully Ray versus the Prodigy Mike Bennett, who is in ROH for those of you that don't watch the show. You picked Kofi Kingston. I see the match coming down to Kofi Kingston and Mike Bennett, with Mike Bennett squeaking out the upset and thus moving on to bigger and better things. More than likely the ROH World Television title. Jack Swagger versus Johnny Curtis, AJ Styles versus Kyle O'Reilly. You picked AJ Styles. I agree with the pick. However, I think Kyle O'Reilly is up and coming and could pull off an upset if this match were to happen. I had to look and research who Johnny Curtis was because I'm not a big SmackDown fan. He was on NXT. He won NXT, I guess. Big fucking deal. He's been in the WWE long enough to have a cup of coffee. To coin steal a phrase from Kid Cash, Mr. 10 Minutes in the Business. Moving on. Alex Riley versus Sin Cara versus Austin Aries versus Rhett Titus. You pick Sin Cara. Sin Cara is overrated. Not a knock against him or the character he used to play in Mexico, Mystico. He's a great talent. I don't think he's ready for the big time. My feeling is that Austin Aries, A-Double, the current Impact Wrestling X Division champion, would win this four-way. Mason Ryan versus Great Khali versus Eric Young versus El Generico. You must be pulling the names out of a hat. Why the fuck would you put these four in the ring against each other? You got two little fucking midgets and two fucking giants. What the fuck? You picked Mason Ryan. Well, that's because Khali can't fucking wrestle. Eric Young's got a stupid fucking gimmick. And El Generico is just a short little fucking Canadian playing a Mexican. David Otanga versus Justin Gabriel versus James Storm versus Jimmy Jacobs. You picked James Storm. I agree. Jimmy Jacobs isn't quite where he used to be in terms of wrestling. Drew McIntyre, Heath Slater, Scott Steiner, and Homicide. You picked the notorious 187 Homicide. Probably the hungriest of the group. McIntyre had it, but lost it. Heath Slater just isn't there, coming off a suspension. Steiner is just old, but looks great for a 40-something-year-old man. Last one, Michael McGillicuddy versus Tyson Kidd versus D'Angelo De Niro versus Rhino. You picked Michael McGillicuddy. I agree completely. The second-generation wrestler would finally have a chance to shine. I'm going to wrap this up, come back and do a book review and a DVD review. This is the Wrestling Wrap-Up. I, of course, am your host, the Megastar Austin Savage. Follow me on Twitter at ProudToBeStraightEdge. Email the show, WrestlingWrapUp@yahoo.com. I will see you guys in a little bit. Thanks for watching.